y equals -2 log base 2, x plus 7 minus 1. So the first thing we need to do is identify the base. Because our base is 2, we're going to make our exponential table for y equals 2 to the power of x. So let's go ahead and make our table. And I'm just going to go to 3. Now, this is not the table that we graph because this is exponential. And we are now graphing logarithms. So what we need to do with this table is flip it. So I'm going to put all of my y values for x. And then I'm going to put all of my x values for y. So does anyone know what my a, h, and k values are in this equation? If you do, go ahead and unmute yourself. Or somebody tell me what a, h, and k would be.
A is -2,
Okay.
H is -7, and K is -1.
All right, thank you. Let me move this down because I can't fit it. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and apply our transformations. So just like with our exponentials, it's always h plus x, y times a plus k. So we're going to take our h value, which is -7, add it to all of these numbers. Take our y values, multiply them by -2, and subtract 1 all the way down. So take a minute, and this is the table. The blue table is the table we're going to graph. So go ahead, pick up your calculators or your phones or whatever you're using to find your table. I'm going to freeze my screen, and I want you all to fill in your table, and then I will unfreeze my screen, and you can see if your values match my values. All right, go ahead and see if your table matches my table. I have my table wrong 5th period, so now I got it together. So hopefully this one is right. So when you're graphing your vertical asymptote, because for a exponential, we had a horizontal asymptote. But for a logarithm, we have a vertical asymptote. And that's always at x equals h. So I'm going to graph that. So that would be x equals -7. I'm going to draw in. I like to draw it in a different color. This is like a wall that the graph cannot go through. So let's go ahead and plot our points. And even though this graph is reflected, it still does not cross the wall. So the graph is reflected, but it's still on the right side of the wall. And that is what your graph would look like. So our domain is h to infinity, so that would be -7 to infinity. And every log graph has the same domain, and that would be all real numbers. Okay, flip it over to the back where you have 2 blank graphs. We're going to do one more. And then we will end there for today. Tomorrow, we will finish 5.4. And as I said yesterday, homework's 19th due date is pushed back to Friday. I may have to adjust all of the homework due dates. But homework 19 is now due Friday. All right, so go ahead and copy this down on the back. This is our example that we're going to graph, and that will be it. So we're going to call this example 7, and we're going to graph y equals 2 times the log base 3 of x plus 1 minus 5. So we're going to start with our base. Let's make our table for our, make your exponential table. And because it's a base 3, we can only put in 4 points now. One of your homework questions has a base 10. So you can only do 3 points, -1, 0, and 1. And we'll talk about that tomorrow too. So if I take 3 to the power of -1, I get a third. 3 to the power of 0 is 1, 3 to the first is 3, and 3 squared is 9. So we don't graph that table. We're going to flip it. So I'm going to put all of my y values over for x. And then the last thing we're going to do is apply our transformations. So our transformations are a is 2, h is -1, and k is -5. So I'll give you all a minute to do your transformations. We're adding the -1 all the way down. And we're multiplying by 2 and subtracting 5 all the way down. So I'm going to freeze my screen, and you all take a minute to fill in your table. Okay, so this is a table I have. So again, we know that our vertical asymptote will be at x equals h. So that would be x equals -1, and I'm going to draw that in. My little dash, which is optional. You don't have to draw it. I like to draw it so that I just remember not to go through the wall. And then I'm going to plot these points. So that would be my graph. And again, this is the rule for your vertical asymptote is x equals h. My domain is always h to infinity. So my domain would be -1 to infinity. And the range is always all real numbers. That never changes. So unless you have questions, that's actually the end of our class. Feel free to log out. I will stay on if you have questions. If not, I will see you tomorrow in class. Have a good day.